Top 10 Sewing Techniques, or How to Sew. No matter whether you are a newbie seamstress or an experienced professional, there must be a few things we all want to know to transform ourselves into pros. Techniques have an important role to play when it comes to changing ourselves from time to time. With lots of anticipation, you need to learn a few shortcuts to make work simpler and more fun. Mastering strong sewing techniques are essential to the successful creation of professional-looking designs. And whether you're a beginner or you've been sewing for a couple of years, it is important to have a few key requirements head on from clothing to quilt. Number 1. Installing an invisible zipper. An invisible zipper closure should just look like a seam, with only a small pull indicating a presence, no puckers or pleats at the bottom. Unlike a traditional zipper, it is invisible once it is inserted with the seam open. You'll need a special grooved invisible zipper foot to allow the needle to stitch as close as possible to the rolled out zipper. Unzip the zipper and pin it face down on the seam line, right side with the top at the upper seam. Roll the zipper into the right groove under the foot and stitch about 2.5 centimeters above the zipper pull. Number 2. Machine stitching a blind hem. Yes, you can create a blind hem on the machine, but not everything works with this option. Garments that are straight and not flared work best, and textured fabrics help to hide the stitches. Mark the hem length and trim the hem width evenly. Finish the hem upper edge by turning it under, serging or applying hem tape. Fold and pin the readied hem back to your garment side, leaving only the hem edge, finishing 6 millimeters exposed. Attach a blind hem presser foot to your machine and adjust the guide so that it rides along the garment's folded edge. Number 3. Sewing plus pressing a curved seam. When you first look at two opposing curves, you may think that there's no way they can fit together, but surprise, they do. Joining a concave and convex curve takes a little know-how for a smooth seam. Sew a line of stitching just inside the seam line on the concave curve and clip into the seam allowance every 1 centimeter, stopping short of the stitching. Number 4. Creating even gathers. Making even gathers isn't easy, and there's always those pesky little pleats and tucks that find their way into the mix. To ensure a nice, tight, even gathers, sew a line of basting stitches 3 millimeters on either side of the seam line. On tough to gather fabrics, add a third baseling line on the seam line. Leave long thread tails on both ends, and when you're ready to gather, grab all the bobbin threads on one end and pull gently, easing the gathers to the center. Repeat from the other end. Number 5. Setting in a sleeve. A seemingly much larger curved piece has to fit into what appears to be a much smaller hole. A set-in sleeve should have a smooth cap without any wrinkles or tucks. To accomplish this, you need to ease the cap fullness to fit. Similar to gathering, easing evenly distributes fullness without any gathers. Stitch 3 rows of basting between the sleeve notches, one on the seam line and the others 6 millimeters on each side, leaving thread tails long enough to pull. Number 6. Choosing the right needle. One of sewing's greatest mysteries is sewing machine needle selection, and it's important to match the right needle to the fabric and thread for successful stitching. Needles are sized according to the diameter of the shaft, and that choice is related primarily to the fabric thickness. Sizes range from 65/8 to 110/18. The first number is the metric sizing, and the Second is an American sizing. The larger the number pair, the bigger the needle. Lightweight fabrics require a smaller needle, while heavier fabrics need a larger one. Number 7. Choosing the right thread. Matching the correct thread type to the needle and fabric being 7 will allow you to avoid many frustrating hours ripping out those stitches. Although choosing from the plethora of different types, weights, and fibers available can be confusing, you can simplify the process by keeping a few things in mind. Choose an appropriate thread weight for the weight of the fabric. Keep in mind, the larger the number, the finer the thread. Choose a thread that is made from the same or similar fiber as the fabric. That being said, there are properties of each type of thread that make them appropriate for sewing a large range of fabrics. Silk thread is a good choice for sewing both silk and wood fabrics, shears, and other delicate fabrics. It's also great for sewing on knits or stretch fabrics, as silk thread has inherent stretch. Fine silk thread is great for hand sewing on delicate fabrics and for applique. Polyester thread is appropriate for sewing synthetic fabrics and many general sewing projects, medium weight fabrics. It's also a good choice for sewing on knits or stretch fabrics, and it's often the most economical thread option for general sewing. Cotton thread is appropriate for sewing on cotton and for hand stitching, but it may break more easily than other threads, and certainly not appropriate for fabrics with stretch. Most cotton thread available today is mercurized, which improves the strength and provides a smoother thread than cotton that has not been mercerized. Cotton wrapped polyester is appropriate for sewing most medium weight general sewing projects. Specialty threads such as quilting thread, heavy duty or upholstery thread, and top stitching thread are all examples of specific use threads that are available. There are lots of threads to choose from, so be sure to read the labels, test different types of threads, and choose a thread that is appropriate for your project type. Number 8. Adjusting thread tension. If your mother repeatedly warned you not to touch the tension, free yourself of that admonition and know that it's really okay to dial up or down. If it does not make the stitch look like how you want it, then you can simply and safely put it back to where you began. Tension is like a tug of war between the bobbin thread and the top thread ideally. Both should be of equal strength. If you could cut through a seam vertically, the bobbin and the top threads would be interlocking in the middle. Number 9. Sewing buttonholes. Nobody wants buttonholes that show homemade, and the best way to stitch perfect ones depends on your machine. Some machines, quote, read, quote, resize the button, and they make the hole the proper size automatically. Others require more marking, and some form of user involvement in the stitching process. Transfer the buttonhole placement lines from the pattern on your garment fabric using a removable marking method, chalk, pen, pencil, or thread tracing. Buttonholes can be vertical or horizontal. The vertical ones are aligned with the center line front or back, and horizontal ones extend 3 mm beyond the center line. Always stitch a test sample to make sure that your button fits the hole comfortably. It is important to interface the area where the buttonhole with the stitch. Otherwise, you get fish mouth buttonholes with gaping openings, especially bad in knit fabrics. Number 10. Making and inserting piping. Whether you're sewing a pillow or a garment seam, piping adds a professional finish, and it's super easy to do. Measure the circumference of the piping and add 3.2 centimeters for the seams. Then cut and piece bias strips to the length needed. Center the cord on the bias wrong side. Fold the excess fabric over the cord and match the edge cuts. Using a zipper foot, stitch close to the cord. If your machine has a piping foot, use it instead of a zipper foot to allow the piping to feed through the underside of the groove, and adjust that needed position to stitch just inside the basting. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video, hit the like button and share. And for more videos, please subscribe to our channel.